So the Samsung Galaxy S3 has landed, and impressive it is. But how does it stack up against the people's favourite, the iPhone 4S? It's time we found out. Build quality and design-wise, the two could hardly be different. The big S3 is massive, curvy with a plastic chassis, while the 4S is small, angular and finished in steel and glass. Both have their advantages and disadvantages. The curved style of the S3 actually makes it more comfortable sat passively in the hand. But once you start doing anything, the size of the S3 becomes an issue. Holding it in a normal, comfy position, it's a struggle to reach even half of the screen, whereas the iPhone puts the whole lot within easy reach. As such, you often have to use a second hand to get things done. This is fine in many situations, but is a pain if you just want to check the footy score while holding a pint in the other hand. But when it comes to things like watching video or playing games, the big screen of the S3 really comes into its own. Given the S3 is widescreen as well, you actually end up with a picture that's 4.2 inches across compared to the iPhone's measly 3 inches. The S3 also has an advantage thanks to its AMOLED display technology. Thanks to its lack of a backlight, this produces deeper blacks and greater contrast than the IPS screen of the iPhone, and lends itself perfectly to dark and moody videos and games. Its sheer size is also much better for web browsing. That said, the iPhone 4S's screen is still much sharper, produces more natural looking colours, and is brighter too, so is better for outdoor use. The other big hardware differences are revealed when we turn the phones over. The back of the S3 peels off to reveal the battery, SIM slot and expandable storage in the form of a microSD card slot. In contrast, you can't access the iPhone's battery nor expand the storage. When it comes to processing speed, theoretically the S3 has a big advantage over the iPhone. The S3 is quad-core compared to the iPhone's dual-core, and in benchmarks it annihilates the 4S. But in use, both feel very snappy, and actually some games look and run better on the 4S. This really highlights how so much of what makes current phones great is their software, not hardware. That said, the S3 is noticeably faster at rendering web pages. Speaking of software, the 4S runs Apple's iOS operating system, while the S3 uses Android. There are far too many differences between the two to cover here, but a couple of the key ones are that Android lets you add widgets to your home screens, it has a separate apps menu, whereas the iPhone keeps all apps on the home screens, and crucially, you can heavily customize Android. From adding a different keyboard to completely changing the firmware, it's not always easy, but you can in theory make an Android phone do whatever you want. And its two most lauded features are that you can simply drag and drop files onto your phone, without the need for any extra software like iTunes. And the web browser supports Flash video, so you get a full web experience. On the flip side, the 4S still has access to the most of the best apps, and its more restrictive, closed approach does make it super easy to use. Getting back to the hardware, both phones offer similar quality 8-megapixel cameras, but differ greatly in how you can use them. The 4S provides a hardware button for taking your shots, but the app only has options for a grid to line up your shot and a very good HDR mode for bringing out greater dark and light detail. But that's it. In contrast, the S3 has a wealth of options, including a rapid-fire burst mode, smile shot for grabbing a snap when you smile, a panorama mode, and much more. It also has a much more powerful flash, but it doesn't have a hardware button, so you have to use the on-screen shutter button. All told, these are two very different phones that will probably suit two very different people. The S3 is great as a one-stop solution that serves as your primary portable media player and tablet replacement as well as a phone. And it has plenty to tailor for tinkerers. Meanwhile, the iPhone 4S is better at being a pure phone that sits alongside other gadgets like a tablet or e-reader. It's simply easier to use and handle. Perhaps the key thing to take away from this is that neither yet feels perfect. The iPhone is beginning to feel a little cramped, while the S3 seems excessively large. Roll on the iPhone 5 and Galaxy S4.